What's going on, everybody? I'm Aslan Hajavandi, joined by Irish O'Fell, managing editor of Warchant.com on the right-hand side of the screen. And in the middle, stuck in the middle, everyone's favorite, Corey Clark, senior writer, lead writer for Warchant.com. I think that promo code, Norvell 2020, has got a few hours left on it. Use it, 25% off an annual membership, $25 e-card to Garnet and Gold, and 3 free additional months tacked on top of it. Monday morning, we were able to speak to Coach Mike Norvell. Coach Chris Thompson selected players after Monday's practice. I guess the headline news, Ira, obviously was injuries. Jordan Wright, the UCLA transfer tight end, out for the season. They hope that he will apply for a 6th year. Chubba Purdy, who might have been emerging in the quarterback contest, out with an undisclosed injury for an undisclosed amount of time. I saw somebody post on the Tribal Council, we just lost our starting tight end and our starting quarterback. That sounds a little bit dramatic.
Yeah, it does. It's Jordan Wilson, of course. I think he was the right pick at tight end, I think, for Florida State. That's who.
Ira.
Thank you. I covered a kid in high school. His name was Jordan Wright. He was really good. I apologize.
You see what I deal with on a daily basis.
Easy.
Happens all the time. I think the Jordan Wilson is actually more significant, even though I think more people are going to be concerned right now about Chubba Purdy. I mean, Jordan Wilson's a guy that came in as a 5th-year senior from UCLA, big, strong dude. I mean, we interviewed him last week. You could see how wide his shoulders were. I mean, he was going to be a really big force in the blocking game, and we know how much Florida State needs help on the offensive line. So I think that's the bigger loss, and it's a season-ending loss. You really hate it for that guy to transfer in and have that happen. The Chubba Purdy news is going to be what probably most people talk about because it's the quarterback position. There's so much hype about Chubba Purdy. And then, it also comes after the first scrimmage when, the controversy will revolve around the fact that Mike Norvell lets these young quarterbacks take contact. He makes them live. We got the video clip from FSU of him kind of running through a tackle towards the goal line. So I think that's what everybody's going to be focused on. And then the question is, how much does this set him back? From everything we hear, I think he'll be back in time for Georgia Tech, maybe the week before to prepare for the Georgia Tech game. But how much of a loss is it just missing this time in preseason?
I mean, there's no way he wins the job. You can't miss 2 to 3 weeks of preseason camp when you didn't have any spring at all. Now, look, nobody else did either, really. But still, you weren't exactly completely even with these guys. You have no experience at the college level. And now, Norvell talked about it. Chris Thompson, the tight ends coach, talked about it on Monday. All these coaches talk about the reps over and over and over again and how important that is. Well, this is 2 weeks of lost reps. So he's got to be like Brett Favre. He's got to be that kind of get that kind of talented to be able to withstand missing half of camp as a true freshman and still starting against Georgia Tech. We don't know how good the chances were anyway, but I think they're just basically done now. As far as Jordan Wilson, I can't wait to really see in person what the tight end position does for this offense, because apparently it's the key to the whole thing. It's the catalyst. It makes it go, because the way they talk about the tight ends, now we did talk about the tight end, talk to the tight ends coach. It's a really important position in this offense. So to lose a guy that could be like an extra run blocker, and now you're left with Cam McDonald, who we think is a really good receiver, but not much of a blocker yet, and then 3 guys that have never done it. So that's a big loss. That was going to be a big addition for them to have Jordan Wilson.
On the personnel side of things, the on-again, off-again, on-again relationship with Warren Thompson and Florida State is back on again. Mike Norvell, I think probably the longest response of the preseason was kind of discussing his thoughts on working through these things with Warren Thompson. For the whammies that he's been dealing with off the field with players going on social media and creating sort of unfavorable situations for him, Mike Norvell seems to be making the best out of these situations when they do present themselves, Ira.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it. And, in any of these situations, when it comes to a player that's kind of had multiple run-ins, and we can't dismiss the fact that Warren Thompson, I probably shouldn't use the word dismiss, maybe it was a Freudian slip, but, he was dismissed from the team this time, or last I guess it was maybe October, November, late last season, where he was no longer on the team. He and Willie Taggart had a falling out, and he and his mother had posted some stuff on social media about the coaching staff. So then when Mike Norvell comes in, he brings him back into the team, accepts him, I'm sure, put some guidelines in place for how things are going to need to happen. And what Mike Norvell said today is for 8 months, everything was great. He was thrilled with what Warren Thompson was doing, was happy, just says he loves him as a player and as a person. And then you have what happened last week. And, I think Mike Norvell showing some grace by letting him stay in the program. But you also, as a coach, these are kind of things that are really important for especially a first-year head coach, because everybody else on the team watches these things and they want to see how you handle when guys get out of line. And not to say that Warren Thompson was outrageous last week. He has a right to be concerned about COVID, but for him to take it public the way he did and to basically, impugn the character of the leadership, say they were out for money more than they were out for him, was concerning. So, it's one of those tough situations, but if it works out, this is one that people are going to Monday morning quarterback. If everything goes great with Warren Thompson and turns out to have a successful career, you'll give Mike Norvell a ton of credit for giving him another chance. If it doesn't go well, if there's something happens down the road where he lashes out at the coaching staff again on social media, then people will say maybe he was too forgiving.
Yeah, and he didn't. And Warren Thompson apparently deleted his social media. Right, that's probably that's a good thing. That's probably a smart thing to do, at least for the immediate future. Norvell talked about how he really did like Warren Thompson. I think he even said, "I love Warren."
Yeah.
And I think that might have been why he was so angry last weekend when it came up, was because he's like, "Man, really, this guy wasn't even on the team. I let him back on the team." And look, I know that there's two sides to every story, but a head coach almost always is going to side with the other head coach. And especially when it comes to airing your grievances publicly, like Warren's family did when he was kicked off the team. So for Norvell to welcome him back and make him a part of the team and talk glowingly about him, and then for them that to happen at the beginning of August, I'm sure really was hard for him to deal with. And so he said that Warren, I guess they had a talk on Sunday night. Warren reached out to him over the weekend. I guess Norvell heard what he needed to hear to let him be a part of this team. And there's look, he has 5 catches in his career. This is the most a third-year player with 5 catches in his career has ever been talked about. But the dude has some serious skill. Like, he has potential to be a big-time player. That probably doesn't hurt the healing process. It's Warren Thompson, but still, that will have to be the last time he and a coach butt heads. I would think. that it's a very short plank now that he's on moving forward.
Meanwhile, over on Warchant.com, Corey, you got a column that sort of covers the overarching theme of the press conference, at least Mike Norvell's thoughts when we're not dealing with personnel. And it's a guy that's having to instill a new culture and sort of get the best out of his players, and might not have gotten Monday, but obviously a long road ahead. Just what were your thoughts on him talking about the importance of intensity and his expectations for that at his practices?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was encouraging. I think maybe Florida State fans were starting to wonder, hey, is this guy just going to be puppy dogs and rainbows after every practice? Like, things are great. Well, number one, we've seen him on a practice field, and he ain't that way. But for him to come out publicly and kind of, I don't want to say shame, but actually talk about how hard this team needs to work and how much room it still has to go, putting the consistent effort together. Like, he pointed out, like, yeah, the scrimmage on Saturday was great. He said it was one of the best scrimmages he'd ever been around, especially considering no spring. But then to follow it up with a lackluster Monday, hey, man, that's why you're coaching here, Mike. Willie would still be here if they didn't do this kind of stuff. Like, this is the group you've taken over. They don't know how to consistently give effort. They have to be coached to do that. 2017, they had a coach that was 1 foot out the door as soon as they lost their starting quarterback. Then we know what happened the last 2 years. So it's not a roster that's really used to this kind of standard, I guess, level of expectation. So it's going to be a work in progress. But I think it's the things he says are so encouraging about he's not going to let that slip. And he's not going to be like, oh, well, you had a tough scrimmage on Saturday. There's a physical practice Monday. I get it. No, he's going to rip them because there's an expectation and a standard that he has that, quite frankly, has been missing here for a while.
All right, strong call. You're not going to even have to edit it, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's usually the case when Corey puts his keys to the work. One thing I want to ask you guys real quick before we go is there's going to be a lot of debate about letting your quarterbacks be live. How do you guys feel about it? One thing I wanted to point out, though, was that when we really started to hear, we heard a lot about Jameis Winston when he was a freshman and a redshirt freshman, but when we really started to hear people get excited about him was Jimbo made him live. I think it was a spring practice. Now, it was spring. It wasn't preseason, but he made him live, and Jameis trucked the dude at the goal line to get in the end zone, and that's when everybody went, okay, this dude's different. How do you guys feel about it? What do you think? I mean, obviously it's easy to second guess now. Chuba got hurt, but where do you guys stand on it?
I mean, I think like with a Rodemaker or even a Blackman, it doesn't make a ton of sense to make them live because they're not using their legs and their physicality to get yards and get points. But that's part of Chuba's game, and you can't just expect him if he was going to be the starting quarterback. Okay, now it's September 12th. I know you haven't been tackled in a year, but go for it. You know what I mean? Like I think you have to do that to an extent, especially like Chuba, right?
Or by these kinds of guys. You haven't been hit by Marvin
Right.
Wilsons and guys. You can't have that happen for the first time in the against Georgia
so
Tech.
I think if it's part of your game, it makes a whole bunch of sense, I think. And it's definitely part of Chuba's game. Like if you're just you don't want your kids to get blindsided.
Yeah.
Like, Blackman's helmet goes sprawling off as Kando hits him from the blind side. You don't want that. But a guy like Chuba, where design runs are important, learning how, look, man, he's been able to run over or run past everyone that's been in front of him for his whole life. Well, that's not the case now. So you got to learn a little bit. And you'd rather do it, I think you do it in August to get him used to what's going to happen on Saturday. It was unfortunate. It was bad luck.
I did like when Norvell said the other day that we know Blackman can take a hit. And I want to say, yeah, man. Everybody knows Blackman can take a hit.
Yep. Jawan Williams knows that for sure.
All right, head over to warchant.com, the Ultimate Seminole Sports Source. Check out Corey's work. We got all the videos from the interviews on Monday. Florida State's back at it on Tuesday. We'll do most of this all over again on there as well. Guys, gentlemen, thanks for your time as always.
Thanks.